Hi guys, good evening.
Good evening.
Good to see all of you, and I hope you all can also see us. So I would also like to welcome you, sir, Rajiv sir. How many of you saw our interaction about a couple of months back? Actually, only a few of you. So it's going to be a good session. It's going to be a fresh session. So I actually started following Rajiv sir, your work about a couple of years back. I've read some of your work, but I've followed all of your ideas through your videos, through your writings, your blogs, your articles. And some of the things, sir, that you talk about, when in India we are in our own cocoon, it feels quite a disruption to the linear thought process that we see from within. But once one starts going deeper and deeper into the ideas that you have shared and the realities that you have shared, it's quite profound. So I'm sure all of our audience here, we have a mix of people. We have a lot of young people. We have some experienced folks. So all of them are very eager to listen to you and your thoughts. I'm going to start with a bit of a broad question for you. I think the context, sir, of India's growth, technology revolution, especially AI, which is your most latest book, as well as the cultural kind of civilizational evolution and wars that are happening in the behind the curtains or in front of it. Could you share some overall commentary on the macro perspective here, how India's rise is being looked at from the West? What are the battlefields, some which we see, some which we don't see, for our audience, and then we can...
Wonderful. So first I want to thank you for inviting me. And as a fellow Punjabi, I want to say that the foreign invaders came through Punjab. So it was our job to resist and fight back. And you are fighting back the foreign platforms that have invaded. So, and that's why I got very interested in getting to know you, because I think that's a good role model. Not very many people have that courage to do that, and you pay a price, because it's not anything you do that is provocative, disruptive, is going to be controversial, but controversial in a good way, and that's how change happens. Now, regarding the question about India, where it is civilizationally, India is in a very unique crossroads. We all know that, but there are challenges with that. Unlike the other major powers, we have a whole lot of internal diversity. And this diversity is an asset. The diversity can also be used against us. That's the issue. Our diversity is an asset, but there are people who want to use this diversity in terms of breaking India, what I call breaking India forces, which is the divisiveness. And that's something we have to watch out. And this is where the algorithms and the social media and the ability to pit one group against another and create identities, whether it's ethnic identities, language identities, religious identities, anything divisive is very dangerous for India given its very nature. So I think that's a kind of an issue that we must come to terms with. Of course, India has a great growth story and a youth population, which is a great asset, but we have to use them. If they are unemployed, it's a liability, because they're mouths to feed and brains to do work. So if we have them employed, it's great. But if we have them unemployed, that's liability. So we have a bit of both. That's, I think, a challenge. How to create more employment? And is AI going to make it better or worse? Certainly, AI will create new opportunities and new jobs, but AI will also kill old jobs. And the question is, which will be more? Also, if 10 jobs are killed and 10 jobs are created, it's not the same 10 people who get retrained, because they may be middle-aged, they may not be trainable, and so in the middle of their life they are going to be disrupted and they have a family, and nobody's going to, the employer is of the old industry is not likely to invest in this older person and retrain him. That's a bad thing, and they'll hire the 10 young people will be hired. So maybe 10 smart Bangaloreans will get the job and 10 poor Biharis will lose their job. And we have to think about all that. So, and also some industries will die and new industries will be born. This is the kind of thing that India is going through. As far as what others think of us, I think India is in a situation, India should not think that anybody is a long-term, permanent, all-weather friend. I mean, people have their own interests, sometimes aligned with us and sometimes not. We saw what happened in Bangladesh, and what does that mean for the Indo-Pacific Quad? Because here we were told that the Indo-Pacific Quad will protect us and save us and all that against China. And right in our own neighborhood, with the best friend India had, they've disrupted them without even telling us, so it took us by surprise. And we didn't even have the audacity to raise it to the UN or to complain to the Quad because we need them. So we have these challenges.
No, sir, thank you for that macro picture. The audience that, if I just kind of characterize the audience today, this is the youth of India also, or it is an audience which is obviously working in the tech sector. It's an audience which is multi-regional, etc., and both male and females a lot. So one of the questions in the mind of young people that is there is, are these all technology wars relevant for us? We are getting Google free. We are getting social media free. Instagram hai and Twitter hai. Elon Musk is now taking care of the bipartisan nature of Twitter. Right? So should we even worry about this? That's, when I go around talking about this digital colonization to people across the country, I just feel maybe people don't relate to the problem. The problem is too far out for the youth of the country to understand. So how do we take it to them?
I'm very happy you asked this question, because if the question is not asked and I answer it, they say, oh, you're making too much controversy, conspiracy theory. So if somebody asks, then I have to answer it, of course. So in this book, I have chapters called Google Devata, Facebook Devata. Those are terms I've coined, because these are the Devatas that we think are no more than anyone else. So they are the adhikaris. They have the authority, which traditionally we had within our own culture. So not only is knowledge as defined by Google considered the ultimate, even our courts, Supreme Courts, they quote Google. Google said this, Wikipedia said that. So what happened to our reference points? We are knowledge-wise colonized because somebody else defines the knowledge for us. More than that, more than just knowledge, they also define who gets to be on the platform and who doesn't. They can de-platform you. If not totally, they can make sure that you don't get the views that you deserve. Somebody else gets the views. This is all algorithm driven. And so there's a profiling of people against a value set which is not our values, somebody else's values. Whether you are complying with pronouns or not, is it their value, or whether it is some other kind of woke idea, somebody else has defined the values, and based on the Western social sciences. Western social sciences are the real problem. These social sciences define the nature of society, what's good, what's human rights, what social justice. All of that is defined according to somebody else. And so people are profiled. Billions of people on these social media networks are individually profiled based on their behavior, what they click, what they post. And so I have a certain profiling, you have a profile, and so it's decided who will get what kind of views and what kind of promotion. So this is a staged, we think we are in a free market of ideas, but the distribution channel of ideas are controlled. So if you can have all the ideas you want, but between you and the public, the consumer, there is a huge elaborate thing. And this elaborate system is not neutral. So they have, sometimes they send you a message saying violation of community standards. But then you ask which community standards, where is it written, who defined it, how do I adjudicate, and that's not available. There's no human being, it's all algorithm. So I see a three-tier system. There are people at the top who have the power to decide the settings. They have the dashboard that they define that, okay, pronouns is a thing to have, this one is not a good thing to have. If you are pro-vaccine or not anti-vaccine, they decide the parameters, they set the dashboard, and that trains the algorithms. The algorithms are trained to have a certain bias. So that's the next tier. And then these algorithms are driving human behavior. The public's behavior, you are being trained by the algorithms. You think that we are training the machines, which is true, we are training the machines. But once trained, they are training the public because they're modulating the credit rating or the score that a person has based on their behavior. So this is how the entire humanity is being, for the first time ever in history on such a large scale, is being moved, managed into a certain direction ideologically. And there are rival camps. There is the American camp within which Elon Musk is on the right wing and the other ones on the left wing. There is the Qatari government. They have Falcon, and they want to train Falcon with Arabic sources, Arabic texts, not Western texts. Then you have the Chinese. So there are different ideological camps. And the question is, where are we? Where are we? So these are the intellectual equivalents of weapons. These are intellectual weapons, intellectual warfare. So people who want to, I've been on this case for about a decade. The book came out 4-5 years ago, but I've been talking about it, writing about it for over a decade. And at least now, people are beginning to give credibility to it because the Americans are giving credibility to it. It's the Americans themselves, the Elon Musk, are fighting the other camp. So they have different camps fighting each other. So it's no longer considered that the social media is gospel truth and everything is just fine because their own people are fighting against on this. So if Indians are sleeping, it is terrible. I mean, you have to wake up and you have to say, why aren't we able to create our own platforms? This is a huge enterprise, but it has to be done. And my my grievance with the old tech industry, I won't name names, but people who really made a killing wage arbitrage, renting brains, taking brilliant people for $10,000 and renting them for $40,000 and making some money, a lot of money. I mean, they're celebrated as big heroes. It was important to do that. China also did that, wage arbitrage with factories. With the difference, in China, they wanted all these people who are making money with wage arbitrage to take 50% of their profits, reinvest in technology, in their own intellectual property. So that's why they become a R&D superpower, and they become a technological superpower. They took the low tech to make money, which is renting brains, and then use that to make technology. And they identified about a dozen major technologies 15 years ago. All these technologies, quantum computing, nanotechnology, AI, whatever, and they got into this. We stuck with that model of milking the cow of wage arbitrage. And we didn't say, instead of living a good life, becoming, famous for doing all this, it had a benefit because we created a middle class. It had a benefit. But then 10, 15, 20 years ago, they should have started bifurcating a large part of that cash flow into the technologies like we're doing now. What you're doing now is better late than never. At least we are getting into this. But we've lost quite a lot of time.
No, sir. If I add a few points to your thesis here and your points here, if you look at India's digital context, and very relevant for the audience, all of you are working on some of these things. We produce 20% of the world's data, digital data, because we are 20% of the world's population, and we are also a younger population. So actually, our share of global digital data is only going to grow. But the irony is that this data is not stored in India. And neither is it owned by our platforms. Who owns our data? Firstly, what is our data? It is your LinkedIn profile. It's your resume, the hard work all of us have done in our life. The data is not owned by you. It's owned by LinkedIn. Your social media is not owned by you. It's owned by Twitter, Meta, whoever else. And this is not even stored in India. It's stored outside India. So our data is exported to data centers outside India, processed over there into AI, brought back into India and sold to us in dollars. This is the same East India Company all over again.
Yes.
We were exporting cotton and importing clothes from Britain. Now we're exporting data and importing AI and paying in dollars.
I have a chapter called Return of the East India Company in this AI book about this very syndrome that you're talking about. So you see, this is absolutely right. Not only we have 20% of the data, but our data is more diverse. Whereas 100 million people in Japan and 100 million people in India or 100 million people in China would not be the same data, because theirs would be more of the same thing, and ours would be more languages, more different kinds of cultures. So the diversity of data is more. And if you want the algorithms to understand whether it is faces, whether it is language, whether it is behavior, diets, the diversity of India is unmatched. So we have something very rich. As far as storage is concerned, storage is not does not guarantee ownership. You could have data sitting in my basement that I don't even understand because it's encoded. I don't know what to do with it. But somebody else has access to it. It belongs to him, not to me, even though I have physical custody. Yeah. So ownership won't be enough. We need to have the keys. We need to have the algorithms. China requires that when somebody wants to set up a factory or get something manufactured from a Chinese factory, they have to deposit their engineering drawings because China says we require it. So the Western world has been turning over their engineering drawings, and China is now reversed engineered, done all this. Yeah. We never demanded anything. Yeah. So we are just very easy because it's easy money, and so we say, chalo chalta hai,
And sir, like you said, the IT services industry on the wage arbitrage, while it was required and it has really served India well, and especially Bangalore, it has served the city of Bangalore very, very well. But if we all look at the macro perspective on the tech industry, right, of which IT services is a part, in the last 2 or 3 decades, the global tech industry has created $30 trillion of value. Just the top 5 big tech companies, Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, each are $3 trillion. And so $30 trillion of value. The IT services industry is $300 billion of value. Yeah. So it's 1% of the global technology industry.
Right.
So this is something that I think our generation has to change. And I say this publicly frequently, and sometimes the young people in India don't like it. And maybe TVG here, I would like your comments, and then you could ask sir a few questions on this topic. That I think the young people now in India don't realize that we're not there yet, right? We have to work hard and not hard just as a just morning to night, 10, 12 hours without, we have to find purpose in this journey of India towards a developed country, towards a world leading country, and the purpose will drive us to do our best work. But sometimes I feel the youth of India is a little apathetic to this, not in general, but there is a lack of connection with, let's say, an Indian dream. So how can we as ordinary citizens, me as a business owner, help cultivate this Indian dream of building this future? Sometimes, we just feel it's the politician's job to do that. But a good society, vibrant society is where everybody is contributing to this narrative, and the narrative in our case of an Indian dream where the young really aim to change the status quo.
There's an analogy. The British created the civil service to create babus, make them uniform. Everybody sort of complying, no creativity allowed, just be a follower, obey the rules. So they took the very innovative Indians. The British wrote that these people are very creative, but we have to sort of make them dumb down a little bit and follow orders. So this is how the whole thing was done. Now, this call center business, this whole tech services business is actually taking the creative potential of the Indians, dumbing it down and making them comply with making them like a second-class copycat Westerner. So you get a call from somebody in India, this Indian Desi fellow, he's trying to pretend that he's some John somewhere, wherever. And he knows the Dallas Cowboys, and he knows about this and that. They've trained them all this. They've trained them to be like fake. It's so obvious. It's so stupid, it's demeaning and degrading to do that to our people. I feel that the youth deserve better. And I'm so happy that we have people like you actually shaking people up and saying, let's be creative and let's take on the world.
Thank you, sir. TVG, your comments on this? And
what would be the kind of, what he's saying is this is not popular parlance. It's not in the popular, imagination that we need to dream differently, create a different kind of country. What do we need to do as a nation?
So, this is a huge topic. I'm writing a lot about these things also, and I have many propositions to that should be carried out, in my opinion. But I feel that there are certain things that are large platform type of things, not just LLM type work, but there are other kind of work. And then there are a whole lot of entrepreneurs that can be unleashed. The problem is that our entrepreneurs are unleashed on somebody else's platform. And this means in some ways we are enriching and enhancing them, because the Apple platform or the Windows platform or any platform would not be so strong if there weren't so many apps on it. And we may not be owning the apps even. We may be just the employees that are developing the app for somebody else, and those apps are running on somebody else's platform. So we are enriching other people. We have not demanded. Now, I don't know why the tech services people did not demand a share of equity. which Microsoft would have given in the early days, which Apple would have given, because there were times when they were short of money. And we could have said, I'm going to supply 50,000 man years of work. And besides, rather than negotiating the best per man year wages, I want to get a cut of what the product is. We could have done that. At some points in time, those people, and they did these deals with others. It's very normal for an American company to cut a deal with somebody who says, I'll provide the R&D services, but I want a share in the... We just never thought that we can take them on. So these are, I think, equity ownership is very important for us. And not be bricklayers that are just laying the bricks for somebody and then we don't own anything. That's the breakthrough we need.
And the question that I have is, the imbibed cultural narrative is one of deference westwards. This is the base point that
the colonized
approach. We need to break away from it.
Yes.
Now, there are two elements to this. One element is what kind of things that we need to do socially in order to bring that change. Question that Bhavish was asking earlier. The second is, how can we leverage, assuming that we have access or the ability to create new technologies, how can we leverage technology to make that happen? There are two elements to this.
If I just add to your first point, sir, a few Independence Days ago, I think the Prime Minister also said in his Independence Day speech that we have to end colonialism in all its forms. Now, as the young people of India, we thought it was ended. Right?
Yeah.
Even when I heard that speech, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, somebody can tell me when it was a recent speech, 2022 or 2021, post-COVID. So then I started thinking about what he means, because the Prime Minister obviously talks about things very thoughtfully. And then you see, we're talking in English right now. We are working on global platforms, the digital platforms. Our debates are, especially the young people, we watch more Joe Rogan and less whichever is the Indian podcaster. So we are in many ways still in a colonialized mindset.
Yes.
So that's another point to add to this. How do we recognize that as a larger population scale, and how can we use technology to change the status here?
So one of the colonizations going on is in the corporate sector through ESG. I know it's controversial, but I'll say it. E for environment, S for social justice, and G for governance. The standards of what is good for the environment have been made by somebody else. The environment, it is not our idea of environment. We have a very rich eco-culture. We have a rich theory. The Vedic theory on environment is so much richer. And we have our own society and very rich in diversity. So we are following the criteria for rating your company. We are following the criteria that McKinsey and PricewaterhouseCoopers and Ernst & Young and all these other guys. I'm not against them. I have a lot of friends and they're good people. But the point is they're following a criteria of ESG which is set somewhere else. It's set in the World Economic Forum. It's set in Harvard. It's set in various think tanks. And it basically is based on Western ideas of society and so on. So we need to, that's a very high leverage point of rebuttal. If we could come up with a Dharma index or something which is a Bharatiya idea of being a good citizen. The idea is to measure whether you're a good citizen. That's what they're trying to measure in the ESG. But according to whose criteria? And not only they have defined the criteria, they come and they do the measurement. Every year they come and do the audit. They make a lot of money to do the audit. Then they tell you that you are short here and here, and we'll fix it for you. And then they make a lot of money fixing it. So you're being diagnosed according to their criteria, and then you're being treated by them. So we are getting ourselves colonized. ESG is a colonial system. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced of that. And we are writing some books on this. ESG as a colonial system. We need to create our own indexes. We need to create indexes that are India-friendly. And this is where technology can come in. We can use AI to measure the index rating of people according to our criteria. AI allows you, if you define the criteria, that the AI gives you the tools that you can create a way of measuring all sorts of annual reports and whatever is going on against your own criteria. But nobody's had the courage to do that. I would love to be in a venture to do that.
I'll actually share another example with everybody on a similar thing. So, just today, actually, I was having a coffee with Ricky Cage. Now, Ricky Cage is this world famous Indian composer who's won 3 Grammys. And he was performing at our recent event on 15th August. So I had a coffee with him today. And he was sharing with me that the Grammys, now Grammys is recognized as the best in class global awards for music. And in that, while the judging panel is all absolutely impartial, but the way they do categorization is how they then bring a Western outlook into these awards. For example, there is a Western devotional category, but there is no Indian devotional category. There is so the Indian devotional will come under global music, where there will be 100 other things merged into it.
Right.
So that's one example he gave. So he wants to set up an Indian award platform of global repute as a way of decolonizing the world of music and having our own perspective in the world of music.
So to take music as an example, in music departments in the West, there is German, there's classic, there's rap, there's, whatever, jazz. They have broken it into different categories. We come under something called ethnomusicology. Ethnomusicology means all those other non-white people. Indian, African, this one, that one, all lumped together. Ethnomusicology. This is the department of ethnomusicology. So I go and ask them, isn't German ethnic? I mean, there is German ethnicity. There is French ethnicity. I mean, for us, that is a certain ethnicity. But they define ethnicity as the other compared to them as a reference point. So they are not ethnic people. The West is, Europeans are not ethnic. Non-Europeans are ethnic. So this is a kind of a chauvinism and a kind of a colonization to project yourself as the universal. And I call this Western universalism. That the West's experience, history, philosophy is the de facto universal, the gold standard against which others are measured. We have to create a Bharatiya universalism.
Sir, if I just channelize some of the questions of the audience on this, and maybe TVG, you can also answer. There's a so what in the young people's minds. Okay, all this is okay. Yeah, we are categorized as like that in Western universities. So what? I'm able to see Indian content creators on social media. I'm able to use these things free. I'm able to access global technology at low cost. I'm growing in my job. I'm able to travel around the world and entertain myself and experience new things around the world. Why is this relevant to me, the young person of India? You want to take a shot and then, sir?
No, what I would, with your permission, I just want to ask one question, then come back to this.
But I've explained the question, so...
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you take a shot in answering this.
Yeah, okay. This is part of our, the way in which, in my opinion, systems, whatever our administrative system.
You have to convince all these people that this is important to care about.
Yeah. No, but the way
is that a fair point, guys? Huh?
Yeah.
Maybe you guys are more in it because you're at Ola, but your friends and your colleagues and maybe your sons, daughters, fathers, maybe they won't care about this as much, right? So we need to really realize that it is absolutely important for us to care about this.
Fundamentally, we, over a period of time, we all have given up our ability to think. The easiest thing that we can get to is the easiest way in which we can live. This is my perspective. So the need to question ourselves beyond our everyday living matters has really come down. Once you have basic needs fulfilled and an ability to travel, everything else is not important. But that's the dangerous lotus-eating system that we are getting into.
So I think we are micro-optimizing selfishly, saying me, mine, now, short-term. That's the thing. So I'm okay short-term. So maybe what Bhavish is saying is good for the collective and it'll be good for the long-term. But I'm only worried about now. This is the disease we have. And the comfort, the short-term platitudes and comfort means that we can get addicted to that. This is very different from China. China started in 1947, slightly worse off than India in terms of the statistics. And look where they are today. Okay, 4 times the GDP, all that kind of stuff. They invested 2 generations of very heavy re-education, sacrifice. You are building the future China. You are not going to get the value. There is no short term. So this is the problem in a democracy. I really believe that this is a controversial statement, but I say it. A democracy wants votes, and therefore, since the majority of the people in the IQ pyramid are at the bottom, lot of regular people, wonderful human beings, but a few people at the top, they're better informed, they're very intelligent, they are the movers and shakers. So what's happening is you need the votes, and for every one very brilliant person, there may be 10 or 20 who just want to feel good, just want emotional, and they want that you make them feel nice and whatever. So that is what the politician caters to get votes. If you are catering to the Bhavish of the world, then you'll get a certain number of votes. But if you're catering to a whole lot of people who want to be told that I'll give you this free and I'll give you that free or something like that, you will get more votes. So the problem of democracy is that you cater to the near-term, short-term, emotional, not necessarily what's good for that person long-term. Even for that person, telling him that you have to do this for the next few years and then you would be much better off later and your kids will be better off later is a hard sell for a politician in an election compared to somebody who says, he's just lying. I can give you all of this free, you vote for me and I will make it happen. So short-term optimization at the cost of long-term disaster. This is the problem we're having. So the kids are representing the policies that are coming from the top also. I think that this is really, democracies are in trouble. I feel that democracies around the world are in trouble. The reason they are in trouble is because they cannot do long-term thinking and they cannot suffer the pain which is needed short-term in order that the society become better long-term. You cannot, it's like the same reason if you avoid R&D and you just keep selling wage arbitrage, you can make short-term profits. Why should I worry about long-term? I can just keep making money and who cares about the hell with the long-term? That is part of the industries mentality, why they're not investing in R&D. It's part of the government democracy mentality because they're just investing in what is feel good, and youth are also part of that. So I don't blame the youth for being very short-term and emotional because the whole Indian society has become that way, dumbed down in instant feel good.
I just want to add a little bit. And there are two elements. First of all, what you are taking off from what you said, there isn't enough grounding in values. That's the central point. Number two.
And by values, do you mean certain Indian civilizational values or general global values, or what do you mean by that?
Every society will have to discover its own set of values. Luckily for people like us, we have historically, as an Indian civilization, a lot of strengths that the way we treat elders, the way we treat children, the way we treat old people, is very different from what you said earlier. Me, my family, my little thing, that cocoons in which we live.
But
that's one point. Can I just one more point? The second, the major problem is all of you guys have been educated wrongly. Right? The entire education.
Don't make people feel so bad. We're all in Ola, we did something right. Okay?
What I mean by that is the only purpose the Industrial Revolution has done is to create masses of tailor-made robots. We're all that. Some teachers, 40,000 engineers are required next year. Are the engineering colleges there to supply? 20,000 or 2 million doctors are required.
But fair point. But if I again say something that the youth would feel, right? I'm somewhere in the middle in age also. See, your first point was value system, etc. Now, the younger people, my age, I'm 38, maybe younger than me, we all feel that values, we want to be modern, quote unquote modern, right? Modern is about being a consumer, being consumerist, being capitalist, whatever. These are the words which kind of abstract out the emotion that we as the young people feel. Okay, we want to be modern, so we don't want to do things which are overtly traditional or religious. Those values are old. We are anyways living away from parents, blah, blah, blah. So how can whereas the irony, and I am myself a convert, if I can say, I used to be this overtly rational, Western educated person. But as I have learned more about our philosophies and our civilizational heritage, I've realized that we've had, our traditional, I don't even want to use the word traditional, our civilizational thought is so profound and so metaphysical that it has space for all thoughts. But the young people don't realize this, because we are overtly in this Western capitalistic consumerist influence.
Two things. One is, I lived for 54 years in the United States. So I also came from a very Western education, went to a convent here, went to St. Stephen's College, very elite westernized education. I went there and I became more Bharatiya over there, because I was that Punjabi audacious person who wouldn't take bullshit from anybody. And so I said, okay, but this is wrong. This is bias. What do you mean by this, that? And I'm talking about at a time when Indians were not that up at the top. I was in the first generation to do that well, okay? So I had to fight extra hard. Nowadays, Indians are accepted. So to do that, as a matter of principle, that why am I not accepted on merit? I'm going to fight for it. I discovered the biases. Then I started studying the biases. Then I started countering the biases. So I created a whole counter narrative for myself. And then I tried to market it to other people through books and whatever, spread it around. So that's one point I want to make, that what you have discovered is similar to what I discovered, except I was sitting right inside, immersed in the other camp and having to fend for myself. But the problem I want to articulate in the following way. The AI amplifies the biases that the system wants the kids to drive into. And there are two kinds of biases. One you picked up, the other I will add. Consumerism. So the whole idea is how to hack your profile and make you buy what we want you to buy. That is how we make money, right? That's the whole advertising industry, and all these tech platforms are based on making you buy what is good, what we want you to buy. So your behavior as a consumer is one big thing. The second thing is ideology. The ideology marketing to you, whether it is your pronouns or whether it is any other kind of ideology overthrow this government, this is one is bad or whatever. So ideological marketing and commercial marketing are driving the entire tech marketing thing. And what has happened is it is setting aspirations. So your aspirations are driven partly by those who want you to buy this and buy that. So you're aspiring that I should get this thing next year. So you're aspiring for consumer goods, consumerism. And the second kind of aspiration is ideological. That you're aspiring ideologically to belong to this group and become woke and be fashionable and so on. So these two drivers are shaping the psychology of people in certain kinds of aspirations. My problem is that these aspirations are unsustainable, because you cannot make 8 billion people live like Americans. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough capital in the world to create quickly, and everybody wants to do it quickly in their life in the next 5 years. It's not like, okay, keep working hard and maybe your grandchildren will enjoy that. It's not acceptable. Everybody wants it now. They all want to become Americans. In my house in Delhi, the driver and the various people, their kids who come from villages, they all immediately, you can see they all want to become Americans because the aspiration has been sold to them. This is very destructive for a country to have groomed its next generation with aspirations that are not achievable. And that's happening.
I wanted, divert the conversation in another direction. There is a lot of work going on in the AI. New technologies are being built around on the basis of AI and everything else. How can we as a nation leverage this moment, this opportunity, turn India as from being a recipient of whatever the other guys are dishing out to us, to being a leader? What would be the kinds of things that we will have to do in your view?
So I want to discuss that with you privately when we sit down afterwards, because I have some ideas, and I want to not, for various reasons, not sort of broadcast them, because partly these are proprietary ideas, but partly also I think the ideas are more successful if they are implemented rather than just talked about. There are ideas like that, but I want to share that with you because I believe in asymmetric warfare. in asymmetric warfare, the other guy's got all the weapons and all that. I don't have all that. I don't have the wherewithal to match him in kind. So I have less, but I want to be able to kind of compromise that guy's might with less quantity. I have to think qualitatively different. So if they're spending, Microsoft or whatever, spending $10 billion a year on their AI and somebody else spending $10 billion a year, we're not going to be able to match that. So we need an AI which is that asymmetric warfare. I'll talk about that.
So what you're suggesting is that we must find opportunities leveraging the asymmetry that is there,
Yes.
given our manpower,
Right.
to come up with things
Right.
that way can leapfrog us from where we are
And
into
we can,
a leadership position.
And we can contest them without having to match all that investment ourselves.
Right. That's a matter of
Yes.
And just to highlight for everybody some interesting stats in the world of AI, where India has a lot of strengths actually. Actually, India's position in the digital ecosystem is very ironical. You know, we are the largest data generator, but we don't own our own data and it's not stored in India. We have the largest developer pool in the world,
Yes.
but we don't develop for India,
Yeah.
right? We don't even develop on Indian cloud platforms because there's none.
Right.
We have the largest chip design ecosystem in the world. You know, like they used to say, every diamond passes through Surat.
Right.
Every chip gets designed in India.
Right.
A part of every chip is designed in India, but
Right.
there is no Indian chip.
Right.
Right. So India's digital context is a bunch of ironies.
Yeah.
And this shows our strengths and our opportunities also.
And this is a topic I've been having discussions, debates, fights, whatever, with Niti Aayog for the last 5-10 years. When Rajiv Kumar was the vice chairman, he's an old classmate of mine. I used to have all this conversation because they are the ones who set the policies. They did not get it. They still continued this idea that, we can use a fab over there. We have 50,000 engineers designing chips and we design it for Microsoft. Even the patents that are made in India, a large part of them are made by people like Microsoft India and Apple India. They are filing the majority of the patents, which means while we say these are patents in India, but we don't own them. They filed in India, but we don't own them. So the ones that are filed in India, owned by India, it's fraction of a fraction. And that's very sad. So really what we have to do is put a whole lot of resource into proprietary knowledge, proprietary technology, where we own the patents and intellectual property. That's very important.
May I ask you
I
one
think
more
final point, because I want to then open up for 10 minutes of
Okay.
Q&A.
One question. What is your advice to all of us, including me and him? We are still young.
So I would say that you need to take a substantial part of your income as a company, as an individual, and invest it in a long bet on technology. You need to do that. You absolutely, if you look at the companies that are successful, look at the percentage, look at how much NVIDIA spends in R&D. My God, it's like a huge amount. How much does OpenAI spend? I mean, as a percentage, it's a massive amount. Why are we living hand to mouth as if, there's no tomorrow and we should just enjoy life? Why aren't we able to sacrifice? Ours is a tradition of, being able to tighten our belts and have a lot of discipline, the yogic tradition that says, do it for the long term and do it for the future. So our values are actually aligned with the long-term investment outlook. But we are somehow living the short-term life as if there's no tomorrow.
That's very well said, sir. If I can just say that it's been so inspirational having you here, for me, meeting you in person for the first time, for you to take out time and come to us and share your knowledge and your vision for India. Really appreciate it, and thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.